Welcome to the JJ Virgin Lifestyle Show with celebrity nutrition expert, fitness Hall of Famer, and 4-time New York Times bestselling author, JJ Virgin. JJ is a warrior mom whose knowledge and expertise have helped change hundreds of thousands of lives with over 3.5 million podcast downloads and appearances on Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz, The Today Show, Rachel Ray, Larry King Live.
Whoa. This show is about you, not about me. I want to help you find practical, real-world ways to dial in your health and mindset so you can finally lose that weight and feel strong and energized. Stop settling for less than your personal best. It's time to find out how to look and feel better than ever. And I'll be right here with you the whole way.
Alrighty, I know this is one of those subjects that always gets the most questions and rave reviews. And our guest today got rave reviews on her last visit on my podcast. So I coerced her to come back. I just was spending some time with her out in Austin, Texas. I was like, you gotta come back. It is my buddy, Dr. Amy Myers, and she is an amazing expert in autoimmune disease and has written 3 books on the subject that you will want to have. You'll especially want to grab her latest book, which we'll be talking about today, the Autoimmune Solution Cookbook. She also has the New York Times bestselling books, The Autoimmune Solution and The Thyroid Connection. And the reason I saw her in Austin is she is the founder and medical director of Austrian Ultra Health, and she has helped literally tens of thousands reverse their chronic illnesses, especially autoimmune disease, through her books and her programs and her functional medicine clinic. And she has an amazing hero's journey that got her into this, which I'm going to have her share with you. But I would love to remind you that you're going to want to grab, we have so many things we bring up during the show. So I put them all in the show notes along with a great gift she has for everybody, which I'll let her tell you about. So you'll want to go to jjvirgin.com/pantry. Alrighty, welcome back, Dr. Amy Myers. I'm thrilled to have you here with us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I always love being on your show.
Well, you were a huge hit last time. My audience is super interested in autoimmune disease. And what I'd love to do, kind of to intro you to people who don't know who you are yet, which I doubt is very many, is hear how you got so interested in autoimmune disease.
Well, it's from my own personal story, and I will make it ever so brief because we end up on the whole podcast just do my story. And it's, of course, in all 3 of my books, the Autoimmune Solution, the Autoimmune Solution Cookbook, and the Thyroid Connection. But I myself, my second year of medical school, got diagnosed with autoimmune thyroid Graves' disease. So I was having overactive symptoms, panic attacks, weight loss, tremors. Went to the doctor. They brushed me off, basically told me I was kind of crazy. And ultimately, knowing nothing about functional medicine, I had my thyroid ablated. And so I knew that there had to be a better way. I eventually found that through the Institute of Functional Medicine and opened a practice, wrote 3 books, and have now helped literally tens of thousands of people around the world help reverse their autoimmunity.
Yeah, so sad that happened to you, but look at what you've done because of it.
Yes, definitely.
Right.
Would I have my thyroid back and not have helped anybody? Maybe I'd pick that one. I don't know. But we are here now, and at least I've turned
there you are
into lemonade.
You're super duper healthy and thriving and changing lives all over the place. And now you're a mommy too.
Yes, I am, and trying to prevent her from ever having any thyroid issues or autoimmunity. So.
Oh my gosh. And she is the prettiest little girl. So cute. So your baby girl, because again, I think for all of us raising kids, we're like, I wish I'd known this when they were little, but now you know all of these things. So what are you doing differently? What are some tips out there that you can give to mamas and grandmamas out there to help their babies?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I'm doing what my parents did for me in a certain kind of way, which is to eat like they ate. Now, we didn't realize at the time that, I had a gluten issue. And I had a dairy issue, but we ate real whole foods. It wasn't, here's what mom and dad are eating, and here's mac and cheese or frozen dishes or something for us.
I know the kids' meals. Like, what are these kids' meals? Like, why do you go to the restaurants? It always blows my mind. Like, there's not one healthy option on the kids' meal. Like, why do we do that?
Chicken fingers, mac and cheese, and what is that? Grilled cheese. So we're like, no, she eats off our, our menu, or I'll just order whatever and we share. So she was breastfed and then moved on to camel's milk, and her first food was an avocado, and literally dinner last night was chicken and sweet potato and broccolini. So,
she's how old right now?
She's 14 months.
See, it can be done. And you threw out a little thing there, camel's milk. We'll put in the resources. We're going to put a bunch of super cool resources, which you will want to grab, especially when I tell you what Dr. Amy is supplying we'll do it at jjvirgin.com/pantry. But tell us about camel's milk.
Well, all types of quote unquote milks. And I get asked this question about sheep's milk and goat's milk. People are more familiar with. If you have a dairy sensitivity, a cow dairy sensitivity, can you eat that? And totally depends on the person. The proteins are similar. For some, they're too similar and they can't tolerate it. For others, they're more dissimilar and they can tolerate them. So because camels, not many people are drinking too many camel's milk, and the proteins are even more different, it can be a really good source of protein. In the interim, if you can't breastfeed or don't want to do formula, something of the sort, and be less allergenic. So that's why we chose it for her. We started once she was eating real solid foods. My daughter was adopted, and so the breast milk that we were getting was from a surrogate. And so, she had committed to 6 months with us. We were managed to stretch that out to 9 months. And in the interim, once she started eating solid food at 6 months, then we never went to a formula. We just went straight to the camel's milk and then didn't have to make a formula. Although there, are recipes to actually make a formula if you can't breastfeed or, you're in a situation of adoption or surrogacy or something like that. And that's just not an option for you.
So we will put the resource for camel's milk, because we just actually had it at our retreat.
Oh, yeah.
And right. So and I just got to hang out with Waleed, our buddy, the camel's milk guy, and the camels.
Yeah.
So that was very fun. Now, you wrote the Autoimmune Solution, which we'll put the links to that in the note too, because you want this book, and you also want your next book, the cookbook. And in the cookbook, you talk about some things that happen with your health. So since publishing that book, like what else has been going on that you've recently overcome?
Yeah, so I write about in all of the books, the autoimmune spectrum, and, way down on the one end of the spectrum, there's no inflammation to gradually more and more, and then autoimmunity. And certainly I do believe, and I've helped many people in my clinic and worldwide who've never even seen me, who were way at the top end of that spectrum, work their way back down. And so that's what I talk about when I talk about reversing autoimmunity. It's getting back down that spectrum, getting your life back, getting your symptoms to go away, getting your antibodies to go lower or go away. And if you're on harsh or toxic medications, to get them to go either, typically off of them. And of course, if you're dealing with autoimmune thyroid or need insulin from diabetes, those are not medications, those are life-saving hormones, in my belief. So what I noticed for myself after I wrote the Autoimmune Solution, and then right smack in the middle of writing the Thyroid Connection, I just noticed some things in my health not moving in the direction I wanted. And I got some labs checked and couldn't find anything. Eventually we discovered, never actually found it, but toxic mold in our home. So the point of all of that is that, as you go through the program, you get well. This is a journey. Even those of us that live and breathe this, external factors can come about. It could lead you potentially further up that spectrum. But as you go back to the program and work through the 4 pillars of the Myers-Briggs program, you can get yourself back down that spectrum. And for those people who are, interested in the book, or the newest book, the Autoimmune Solution Cookbook, it really is a standalone book. So even though it's called a cookbook, yes, it has 150 recipes, but I recap my entire program. I talk about that, the autoimmune spectrum. I talk about the 4 pillars. I even give, ways to get the family on board, travel tips, all that kind of stuff. So it's really meant to be actually a standalone book. So if you haven't picked up a copy of either of my other 2 books, this is meant not only to be a companion to the first one, but really a standalone book in and of itself.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I've got it sitting actually right here where I can see it right now. So definitely one. And I also think we can never have too many recipes out there. So, because you hear people go, I don't know what I'm going to eat. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many options. And I think that's important because one of the things that you talk about, and it's always been kind of an annoyance factor for me, is this idea that, when you have issues like this, you can't have a little bit. Because I think there's this idea out there, go ahead, just have the bread, it'll be fine. So, let's talk about the difference between like just having a little bit of something or learning how to put this into a way of life without feeling deprived.
Right. So, as I mentioned, it's called the Myers Way, and it's because it is a way of life. And what I do is for the first 30 days, have you remove, a fair amount of foods, some toxic and some inflammatory foods. And really what I'm teaching people is to listen to their bodies. And so at the end of the 30 days, or if they choose to go 60 or 90, depending on, how severe their health condition is, but once they're feeling better and those, they are reversing their autoimmunity, they can begin to gradually add some foods back in. Now, there are 2 foods that I consider are absolute no's if you have autoimmunity, and that's gluten and casein or dairy. And then there are other foods that for some people can be very bad, like grains or legumes, and for others, they might be able to tolerate them on occasion. And so it's really figuring out what are your absolute no foods, and then what are those ones that you can sort of do sometimes, potentially, but knowing what they are for you. And there is no, in my opinion, the studies out there, the research shows if you have a gluten sensitivity and you have autoimmunity, each time you eat it, it can potentially inflame your immune system for up to 3 months. So that gives you, 4 times a year, and you never gave your immune system a break. So that's what I mean by, there's kind of like no 80-20 when it's coming to these really, really toxic inflammatory foods that we know. And for some people, something like corn might be far more inflammatory for one person than it is for another. And so it's really figuring out what are those ones for you. I think we can all agree corn's not a great food for anybody to be eating on any kind of regular basis. But, is there, after you've gone through the program, is there any leeway there or not? For some people, there's none. And for others, there might be a little, particularly if it's organic.
I love that you talk that way because that's how I love to take people through the process, is have them be their own personal health detective so they can really connect those dots. So how would someone know, say, if corn worked for them or didn't?
So this is why food sensitivities can be really tricky for people. So food allergies are, an immediate reaction. And that's typically the things like hives or itchiness in your throat or your nose running.
Yes, if you have that. That's like not, it's like, okay, obvious. The peanuts were open. My throat closed up.
Right. So then the, delayed, and I know you talk a lot about this in your books, the delayed food sensitivities are those things that are much harder to detect a lot of times because people are thinking, oh, it's going to be digestive, or, oh, it's going to come out right away. These things can take up to 3 days to come out, and it can honestly be anything. For somebody, it might be swelling. For somebody else, it might be brain fog. For somebody else, it might be fatigue. For somebody else, it might be a rash. For somebody else, it might be digestive symptoms or diarrhea. So, a lot of people are thinking, oh, if I'm allergic to it, I'm going to notice it right away. Or if it's causing me an issue, it's going to be in my digestive tract. And both of those are kind of misnomers and what can make this very difficult for some people, which is why, and I know you do this too, I advocate getting out all these really inflammatory foods all at one time and then adding them back in one at a time, all by itself, waiting those 3 days so you can really see what was my reaction and having something to track. In all of my books, I have a symptom tracker, and I recommend you fill it out before you start the program and then do it each week, because sometimes things are getting better and we forget, because it already went away and we forgot it was a problem. Or sometimes we don't notice that things got worse. Like, oh, today I feel a little more fatigued, or today I have a headache. And then you start, blaming it on something else, or like, oh, well, I didn't get my quite 8 hours sleep. So maybe it's that. It wasn't really that pizza I had.
Yeah, I don't want it to be, please not let it be, don't let it be the cheese.
Right.
It's really critical too with these symptoms trackers to make sure that and I'm sure you've got this in the book, you're writing down your food every day so you can go back and go, what just happened? Like, because again, I think people they don't want it to be those foods that they really love that are creating the symptoms. And often those symptoms are so low grade, they've accepted them as normal. I mean, we're taught these things are normal. Brain fog, headaches, gas, they're just normal. It's like, no, they're not. That is your body trying to tell you something. And these things you just get used to them and you tolerate them. And so this is so key and critical to make sure that you're tracking those symptoms and then really digging down to figure out what is really causing them. Let's go into some of your tips, because I know in the cookbook, it almost feels like, Amy, it really shouldn't have been called a cookbook because it's so much more than a cookbook. It's got amazing recipes, but again, it walks you through the program. In there, you also have some great tips, and I'd love for you to share them for the people who are thinking, oh my gosh, no, I can't do this. I've got a family I've got to cook for, or I'm traveling, I'm so busy. Give us a couple of your tried and true tips that can help people easily get into this Myers Way lifestyle.
Right. So, I mean, I, like you, I live and breathe this way of life, and I'm busy. I run a business. I'm a doctor. I have a clinic. I'm a mom. It's like, I get it. And trust me, if I can do it, you guys can do it too. So it's really not that hard. I mean, some of the biggest tips I think are, or the biggest tip that I would say is be prepared. So, I mean, I travel a lot, when we're talking just sort of classically in your home, be prepared. I'm sure you've partnered as well with like Butcher Box and Vital Choice, get it delivered to your house so you don't even have to think about it. Have it on auto renew. Places like Costco now. I mean, we used to only go to Whole Foods and the farmer's market. And now Costco has so much you can buy in bulk. I mean, we have the fortune to be able to have a, extra freezer in our what do you call it, in our garage. So if you have that ability to, stock up on food that can be frozen, like your meats and things like that, so that you have it there in advance. Heading to the grocery store, batch cooking, batch chopping in advance. If you have the ability and can even hire somebody to help out with those things, a student, somebody that's, can help out. If you got kids at home, getting them involved. My cookbook is, both my parents are deceased, and I dedicated my cookbook to my mom and dad. My mom taught me how to bake and my dad taught me how to cook. I was very, very, very involved in the kitchen from an early age. Bring the kids in, get them involved, help them cut up the carrots and the celery ahead of, in advance, and chop the onions for cooking.
And I got to just shout out on that, because if you want your kids to eat healthy, guess what? Cook with them.
Yes.
My son went off to college, and I monitor his Instacart orders, so I know what he's buying from the grocery store. He is a super healthy cook. He even does recipes for my company.
Awesome.
We just cooked Mother's Day. We cooked an amazing Mother's Day brunch that was totally clean and healthy, and it was his idea. So
awesome.
This can be done. It can be done.
And then, when it comes to travel, I mean, I think when it comes to getting the family on board, that's the thing, get the kids on early on. I mean, even though I had to change my diet later in life, I was going from brown rice and tofu to, and broccoli and, organic chicken. I was a vegetarian for 27 years, but I wasn't going from Twinkies to eating real whole food. So I think, just really getting the kids on board, just saying like, hey, I'm cooking one meal, y'all can eat it or not, when it comes to the spouse, if they're not wanting to get on board, like, this is what's being cooked tonight, you can eat it or not. And most of the time people don't even know the food is so delicious. They have no idea. My husband and I got married 4 years ago. Our entire wedding was, the Myers Way compliant, and nobody knew. I mean, it was a gorgeous steak and broccoli and, mashed sweet potatoes. And, it was incredible.
Amy, we actually had, because our wedding was, we did it for a foundation called Just Like My Child. So we had a charity event with a wedding in the middle of it. And we had sponsors. So we literally had Butcher Box and Vital Choice and No Food. So we had all of the companies that I work with. Everything was grass-fed, organic, GMO-free, right? And Dry Farm Wine came and did all the wine. So you can totally do this stuff. And again, what you're saying is so true. No one ever goes, oh my gosh, like I feel so deprived. It's like they'll go, this is amazing. Can I have the recipe?
Right. Right.
Yes.
And then in terms of travel, I mean, we're going to a meeting together here at the end of the month, and I was staying at the regular hotel, and you're like, hey, I found this one right down the street, or my assistant did that as a kitchen. So I jumped over. But I mean, that's what we do. I just got back from nearly a month in Australia and New Zealand, and most of the places we stayed were, apartment style places, hotels that had refrigerators and cooking. And we brought a lot of food with us, or brought ingredients like the camel's milk with us, snacks, protein shakes that I carry, and bars that I carry. I just pack my suitcase with it. And then I always cook a meal the night before I go and take it with me, because you never know, if your flight's going to be delayed, if what's going to happen. And there's, just usually nothing to be had in the airport. So being prepared is my number one motto. And just, if you do and when you travel, doing your best to stay somewhere that has a kitchen, or if not, somewhere close to a Whole Foods or that type of kind of grocery store is typically what I do.
Yes. And then I just get them, like when I was just in Austin with you, I just had the stuff delivered. Like I just pinged Instacart and had everything delivered. I now have that all just set up as what we do. We get there, this all gets delivered. So we're all set. Got the NutriBullet, got the shakes, got the coconut milk, away we go. So it's just about, getting organized, and then it's really pretty simple to do. And the other one that happens from all that is you actually save money.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're not eating out. You're not having to buy packaged food. I forgot the last time I traveled, this woman was literally eyeing me in the airport as I was opening up my meal that I'd brought with me, and meanwhile, she's eating some gross thing and probably paid, $15 or $20 for her nasty sandwich.
Yeah. Gosh, don't you hate it when they bring those nasty things on the plane and the whole plane smells like the icky French fries? You're like, oh, you realize how just crappy and toxic this stuff is. Now, you've got something super cool to give everybody. And again, I'm going to remind everybody, jjvirgin.com/pantry. We've talked about a lot of cool stuff, so we'll put all the links in. But you've got your Autoimmune Pantry Staples cheat sheet. What's in it?
Yeah. So the last time when I wrote the Autoimmune Solution, we really didn't have a lot of good ingredients to make yummy things. It basically was like leftover dinner is your breakfast, or some breakfast sausage is your breakfast. And now I have waffles and muffins. Not that I want people eating that stuff every day, but we're all human, and everybody wants to have waffles on Sunday or Mother's Day, or pancakes every once in a while. So we have a lot of really great gluten-free, grain-free flours that are now widely available, like tiger nut flour and like cassava flour. They're more, oils and shortenings, like palm shortening, that can be used now. So it's really my top ingredients to make some of these super yummy foods that are found throughout the Autoimmune Solution Cookbook.
It's so much easier now than it was even 5 years ago. It's crazy.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's like you guys are all so lucky listening. We had to, I think back, I started going to health food stores in high school. And so, boy, have things changed. So there really are no excuses anymore. Again, you can get everything at Costco at this point. And so it's so much easier. So I want to thank you so much for your time today. It's been amazing. I'm thinking we're going to be in Florida together and now staying next door to each other. We should really do a Facebook Live for everybody. So we'll have to slip that in. And I want to remind everybody again, you can grab that awesome cheat sheet. And it really is all about prep and having the right staples on hand. We have actually got 2 freezers and 2 refrigerators. So we've really gone stocking crazy here, but it makes it easy. So you'll be able to get all of that at jjvirgin.com/pantry. And thank you again for being here. Now, after the break, I'll be answering the listeners' questions. So stay with me.
If you want to lose weight even faster, here's the 2-word secret: extra fiber. JJ Virgin's Extra Fiber fights hunger. It's detoxifying, and it's the secret to a healthy gut. JJ's Extra Fiber is grain-free, paleo-safe, and doesn't contain any harmful irritants or allergenic proteins, so you can happily and more safely move toward your weight loss goals. Visit jjvirgin.com/products to give your body the well-rounded consumption of fiber it needs to help balance blood sugar, support healthy digestion, and stay fuller longer. Visit jjvirgin.com/products and get your fiber.
Welcome back. This is the time where we answer a listener's question. Now, you can ask me questions all over the place. Instagram, jj.virgin, Facebook, jjvirgin official, YouTube, because now we got the community. So make sure that you're jumping in there and hanging out with me, because I love to go on there live. And that's where I grab a lot of these questions that come up. And I always like to kind of hook up the question with what's going on today. And this one is perfect. And it's funny because Dr. Amy and I were talking about this offline before we jumped on, about this whole idea of kind of the 80-20 ruling. Can't I have just a little bit? And I was on with Dr. Tom O'Brien doing a Facebook Live. And of course, we got the question we always get, well, can't I just have a little bit? Now, this one was, can't I just have a little bit of my cheese? But it's usually cheese or bread or sugar. And here's the answer. No. Well, I'm going to say, no, you may not, if you find that this is a food that you're intolerant to. So one of the things that I teach people, and it's in my book, The Virgin Diet, is I teach people how to go through a process, being their own personal health detective, to pull out the top offending foods, the foods that you're most likely to be intolerant to, give yourself a time to reset, and then go back and test them one by one. And just as Dr. Amy said, it can take a while for some of these things to show up, a couple of days sometimes. But quite often when you're doing that retest and you've really cleaned things out and lowered your inflammation, you're pretty aware pretty quick that something isn't working for you. If you've got autoimmune disease, dairy and gluten are out anyway, and then it's just going to be a question mark on some of the other foods. You can go through this test yourself in my free challenge at jjvirgin.com/challenge. But I just want you to consider this, and I got this metaphor from Dr. Sidney Baker, and it's when you think about the foods that you're most likely to be intolerant to, and there's 7 of them in the Virgin Diet. That's why our 7-day challenge is called the Drop, Swap, and 7-day Drop, Swap, and Stop, Drop, and Swap challenge, where we pull out those 7 foods to feel better fast. Is think about sitting on 7 tacks and like what happens when you do. I mean, obviously your butt hurts, right? So you pull out 6 and sit back down. Well, it still hurts. That's why you got to pull them all out. And there's usually one that's your kryptonite. And what's so unfair about all of this is generally one of the signs, classic signs of a food intolerance, is you start to crave the very food that's hurting you, because your body builds up antibodies to grab onto those little particles that come out and create this problem. And those form immune complexes that create all these problems for you. And those antibodies are what are making you crave the food. So that's a sign. It's not a sign that you need the food. It's a sign that the food probably isn't working for you. So again, you go through the process, you pull the foods out, you let your body calm down, reduce the inflammation, kind of give it a little detox reset, and then you go back and connect the dots, which is super empowering, right? Because then it's not, oh, I think I'll just have a little bit. Then it's like, is this really worth it? Do I really want, is what Dr. Amy Myers just talked about, which was mind-blowing, is that you can eat a little gluten. It can raise your autoimmune titers and create an inflammatory problem that can last for months. Is that really worth it? Nah, just for a bite of bread? I don't think so. Okay. Big shout out here to Perfect 45 Degree, who left this review in iTunes. And by the way, I so appreciate all of the reviews in iTunes, because I know that there's a lot of stuff going on out there. My big goal is to help 1 billion people take control of their health. Now, one of the ways I do that is by having amazing guests on this podcast. And other ways are by doing all of the things we do to get as much content out in the world as possible. I never want you to have the excuse, and let's call it what it is, of not getting healthy because you said I didn't have the information. The information is all around you, and I'm doing everything I can to get as much out into the world and expose you to as many amazing experts as possible. So again, this one is 5-star review from Perfect 45 Degrees, says, JJ Virgin, the best on your health. Thank you, JJ, for making essential health information available and accessible. I think your podcast should be required for every high school class across the country. You cover vital health information and provide resources to delve deeper into the subjects. What could be better? I like to wake up and listen to your podcast every morning, as your encouragement is a great way to start my day after my gratitudes. And I get to learn about something that helps me expand my own health program. A big thank you to all of your expert guests who share the wealth of their knowledge with us. We are so blessed to have you. That is so kind. I super appreciate it. And I appreciate all of you taking your time out and listening to this podcast. And if you've got other people who could be served by it, please remember to share. And I'll look forward to reading your podcast review for everybody too. See you next week. Bye.
That's all for this episode of the JJ Virgin Lifestyle Show, which marks another step towards a healthier body and mind. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and we'll talk to you next week.